Hello, fellow Mythrunians. Welcome to another weekly live stream. Tonight we're going to be trying to get back into, finalizing the AI that we had been working on, the pathfinding and stuff, and starting to sort of rebuild Mythruna's existing AI or port it over. Anyway, we got plans. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the scene and let the thank the patrons there scrolling up. They help keep the lights on, so everyone raise a glass to our patrons. And let's go ahead and get started. I did cut a release on Monday, so there's a new release up. It's actually gotten quite a few downloads this time, so I'm kind of happy about that. Let me do mythruna.com. Here we go. So yeah, I rearranged the site just slightly in lieu of not having the new version up yet, the new site up yet. I kind of rearranged it so the download now will actually just go straight to the this page, which means I probably should take the link off of. I did already take the link off. Okay, cool. The super secret link, which is not super secret anymore. So yeah, we got so all this is going on. And so yeah, we've got quite a few downloads already. So hopefully more people will join the Discord, and we'll see a little bit more traffic there. Have some conversations. I can go over real quick some of what I did, because I think last time we were working on finishing up the desert buildings. So we will. YouTube says my quality is excellent, but there is nobody on the stream, so that's good. Except for this shows that I have 3 viewers. Okay, there we go. It just takes. I think it updates every 5 minutes or something. I don't know. Feels like it. So see, we were playing with the Coastal Desert. Was it Coastal Desert Bay 2? Yeah, that might have been what I was playing with to get it to regenerate. So I also this week made a Mythruna Let's Play video, which I only just finished rendering down like an hour before the live stream, and I didn't feel like posting. Yeah, see, now as soon as I start to run the game, the stream suffers. I didn't feel like posting it like just an hour before the live stream. Or like 30 minutes before the live stream. It seemed like a bad idea. So let's see what we look like here. Yeah, I actually had to record the Let's Play twice because I did it on this computer and it was just too choppy. So I went and I did it on my computer that has more cores and a little bit faster processor and stuff. Yeah, so here we are. Yeah, this is with the new building types, a couple NPCs walking around. So yeah, this will take a little longer. Hopefully you all had a good week. I had a pretty productive week. Did finally get the release out on Monday and or Sunday night actually. So yeah, let me roll time forward a little bit so we get pause here. So yeah, so now there's a lot more building variation, though I'm a little unhappy with how repetitive the canopies look on top, but you get some of these buildings like this that have this sort of portico or colonnade, and which is kind of cool. So you can come in here, and then there's a couple variations on this building. So there's like this one that's just short and has one set of stairs that goes up. Actually, the stairs will be on this side. Yeah, so one set of stairs that goes up into the second floor. And then there's a couple rooms up here, and then another set of stairs that goes up to the roof. And then there's this other one that has like a double sort of patio. Anyway, it adds some more variation to these desert buildings, and there'll be more in the future. But that's kind of what I finished up, along with fixing a whole slew of bugs over the weekend, and got everything sort of prepped and ready to go. So I think this desert town's really cool. anyway, so that's what I did last week, and today we're starting to prep to basically what I want to do is take that physics playground we worked on before, and let's see, here's my thing. So the physics playground we worked on before, and try to incorporate the existing Mythruna AI code into it so that when we plop characters down, they behave like they would in the game, with dogs chasing the Gayfin and, little chat bubbles above their heads and random walk from the NPCs and stuff. Because if I can get that ported to the physics playground, then, basically why? Because then we can test the Mythruna AI in the physics playground as I overhaul, rewrite large parts of it, and make it more scriptable. It'll also help transition Mythruna to use some of the new hotness we've created for pathfinding and auto-walking. So like the stuff we've done in the previous live streams, I can start incorporating that into Mythruna, and we'll be able to see it merge together. So that's what I want. It's just so much easier to mess around in that physics playground than it is to like reload the game and find your place and every time, So that's better. So I've started a little bit. I added the ability. So I thought rather than mess up what we had already done, for those who don't remember, let's run what we had before. So this is the rigger tool that I use to make the... So when I develop a model in Blender, a rig, I use this rigger tool to get it set up for Mythruna. It lets me, load the rig and add collision shapes. So let's talk about that. So if I load the human remail, I need to fix that name, but it's like surprisingly difficult. So if I load the human female, it allows me to set these, collision shapes up, her rough sort of collision shapes to interact with the physics engine, to set sort of the movement rates, for different animation speeds and get all that stuff and test the different actions for the animation. So it lets me set all that stuff up before then finally exporting it in a way that the game can use directly. A pre-scaled, pre-set up, with all the colliders and the attachments for like where their eyes are, where their backpack can go, where the hands are, and stuff like that. Eventually there'll be some belt hooks too for pouches on the belt and things like that that I'll define in here. And so each character type, those might be in a slightly different place, so this lets me define them. Anyway, so like in previous live streams, we added this physics playground, which once we start the simulation, I can get rid of her. But this let us, there's like little bugs in this tool, so if I go here and I come back, she'll disappear this time. So this is like a scriptable area. I can actually change out what this physics playground looks like. We've got two different ones that we've been messing with. But this lets me have like scriptable things that I can put in, like so the human female rig here, and so I can create one and I can plop it in and then do different things. Right now, last time we were working, we were trying to get the collision shapes working with like the auto walking up hills and stuff, and so I have this ability to like just pick her up and control her with the keyboard like I would. Except for it's not mouse look, so like the turning is like really jerky, but so I can see what she'd do on a hill and if she's going to fall back down the hill, and so we never really quite fully worked that out because I don't want her to walk backwards down the hill, but at least she can walk up hills shallow and walk and see. That's what we were messing with, and we never really fully resolved all the issues with that. But we've got run and walk, and so just trying to get the different drivers to work so that she can step up on places like this. Hey Woozy, how's it going? And so that like these kinds of places she can't step up into. I don't think she's tall enough, or she's too tall. So it knows that she's too tall to get in there, so it won't bother to do the step up. Here it'll do like the tall step up, but she can because she can fit under. That kind of thing we messed with before, and it's not fully working, but this is a way easier place to test that kind of thing. And so yeah, here's another one we shouldn't be able to step up. And similarly, we should not be able to step up here. And so it's supposed to know better, like we can't walk into that. So this isn't finished, but I need to start, like, I've been pretty good. How have you been? So we just keep doing that back and forth. So what I want to do is incorporate the AI into here so that I can start bridging the gap between all the pathfinding stuff we've done in this tool and the real AI. And I know the real AI is missing some things, and so sort of having a nice little playground where I can potentially have live scripts that update as I edit them. In the game, no, but in this physics playground, we did have some. They're turned off right now, but we had some working. The previous live streams, you know, it would show how it did pathfinding and stuff using A-star. And so we'll get back into that, but I want to start from sort of having the Mythruna AI already in, because then I can start integrating how pathfinding will work with the AI, and start coalescing some of my ideas about behavior trees versus finite state machines, and what I did already and the things I think are wrong with that. And anyway, this will allow sort of more rapid development in a little test area where you have like this bird's eye view of all the things, which is kind of nice. All right, so with that being said, let's go back over to my thing. So if I can get through all 6 of these steps, I think it'll be crazy. That'll be really cool tonight. It kind of all depends on how quick. Do you know if you'll go with trees or the state machine? So probably some combination. The thing I find limiting about behavior trees is that you've kind of like got to know ahead of time all of the different. If you think about a finite state machine, you kind of have to know ahead of time all the different states you're going to want from the root. And so, because you've got to be able to like put them in priority order and so on. And I have thoughts on this because I like behavior trees for specific tasks. And so what we may end up with is something like a finite state machine, or a really general behavior tree that has parts that can be swapped out, because I kind of feel like a particular mob throughout its day. So Mythruna has a special a need as well in order to still be able to operate a NPC's AI over days and weeks without doing all of the little individual steps. So as I build that layering in, I think things will become more crystal. But I need to know, like they'll have in the sort of RimWorld sense, they'll have jobs, right? And like they'll need to go at nighttime. They'll go to their house and go to sleep, and in the morning they'll get up and they'll go to work. That kind of thing. And I don't need to micromanage that unless the player is around, so I need to be able to just keep these sort of discrete steps and understand that if you come to the town in the middle of the day, all of the NPCs are already at work, right? Because they've already done those like larger grained jobs. And it's just, to me, it's very difficult to sort of thread that into a behavior tree, where you have to start from the root where you always tick, and then that will tick down to all the children that are relevant and so on and so forth. You have to know way too much ahead of time. And the other thing is I kind of want the AI to be adaptive to what's going on in the world in the future, so they may gain tasks. There was this idea that I was playing with back in the Neverwinter Nights days called a mimetic AI, where AIs could like a particular thing could adopt a meme. It was kind of like a state machine, except for they would enter in different modes where that particular state would take over everything, which I guess is very much like a state machine. But anyway, I kind of liked the idea because they could pick up new sort of memes or behaviors on the fly as the world evolved. And anyway, it gets real deep. And we'll kind of explore all that together, not today, but over the coming weeks and months as we sort of evolve that. I'll definitely keep you guys posted on what's going on, because we'll probably be working on it here. But yeah, I think behavior trees work well for Mythruna. They work well as far as execution of a particular job, but not the management of the jobs themselves. The state and an array of states in the... Yeah, there's so many ways to do it. I come from a background where, like the classic finite state machines back in C, where you would actually have an array with function pointers, where you could write a state machine to be a telnet client, that kind of thing, that would take character by character and know how to display that on a, ANSI or VT100 terminal. And so, like, I tend to think in state machines because that's what I'm used to, drawing those little diagrams and thinking about, I'm in this state now, I can't get out of this state until I, do some transition. But even those, you get into trouble if you haven't fully thought out all of your states ahead of time. So I've been thinking more along the lines of a state machine where transitions come in as signals, and so like any signal can interrupt any state if it's been prioritized that way. It gets weird. Make everything in a state, yeah. So we'll see how it evolves. I'm not 100% happy with what I've done so far, but I kind of liked the idea that like the way the current AI works is there's sort of sensors, and you can have signals that come in and they can interrupt what you're doing because there's signal handlers. This is, when somebody talks to me, if I'm not busy, I need to drop what I'm doing and face them and issue my dialogue prompts and things. Or if I'm hungry, there's a sensor that says I'm hungry, and it sends the hungry signal, and I can say, oh well, I'm not doing anything more important right now, so I can go and get something to eat or pull something out of my pack, that kind of thing. Yeah, kind of, yeah. I'm not 100% happy with it because it does get complicated trying to sort out the signals and the priorities, but I like it better than sort of the heartbeat approach, or like Neverwinter Nights scripts, because I did a lot of modding in Neverwinter Nights, and you had like specific entry points for your script to handle certain kinds of very specific signals. You get like a heartbeat method, or you could add a heartbeat function that would be ticked every 5 seconds. You had on attacked, on blocked, you did a bunch of different things that you could specifically write functions for. But it's got its own inflexibilities, and again, it like requires like constant micromanagement of every NPC, and I'm trying to think of ways that I can ignore them when I don't need to pay attention to them. Yep, heartbeats for service. Yep. So I mean, the signals are really easy to think about, and like the very lowest level of your computer is based on signals. So it's a valid architecture. Everybody's computer is a state machine and a signal interrupt handler. So there's a lot of sort of precedent there. In AI, it gets a little weird. I really want, I kind of really want the ability for an individual NPC to pick up and drop handlers, if you will, depending on the modes. I think that it, in the end, simplifies the handling of an NPC if they don't have all of the combat handlers and all of that loaded up just to do their jobs every day. But then if some event happens in the town, like they're being attacked by, orcs or whatever, then everyone would suddenly the town level AI. So there's going to be layers of AI, right? There's the AI that manages the town and keeps the town functioning and in balance, that knows when this building's damaged, they need to assign repair crews and things. And so that sort of higher level AI, the the logistics level would make sure that all the NPCs currently have the right handlers loaded, and I think that sort of simplifies their day-to-day functioning. Less, I don't know. I think it'd make it easier to debug what's going on, but I get all this is speculation. So anyway, but it's a very interesting topic, and I'm sure we'll have lots of fun. This is where we could be cutting edge in some ways, because there's also goal-oriented action planning, which has its own limitations. To do really good goal-oriented action planning, you kind of have to like pseudo. So here's another thing. So goal-oriented action planning is really neat. That's the idea that you have a goal, and then you figure out sort of the chain of goals and actions necessary to do that. So if you want to shoot some guy, and you're not even holding a gun, the action planner would figure out, oh, I need to go pick up a gun, and oh, that gun's not loaded, and so there's the action that I've got to find bullets and load the gun, and then I can shoot the guy, right? So there's this chain of events that has to happen. I'm curious how you handle. Do you handle attaching logic to entities? Do you use OOP or any? Mythruna is based on an entity component system. Now that being said, the AI itself. I'm going to put a pin in goal-oriented action planning for a second, because there's a thing I want to come back to. But Mythruna uses an entity component system, but at the AI level, I'm not sure how integrated it's going to be. It just depends on what I need to persist. Probably, right now it's just that the only component related to AI is the agent type. So it says whether it's a bird or a person or a dog or whatever, and that chooses the brain configuration that they have. But eventually, probably anything that needs to persist will go in the entity system. So probably when they're assigned a specific quote-unquote job to do, or they've picked a job to do, that may get stored. What that looks like, I don't know yet. It kind of depends on sort of what the AI actions look like, how granular they have to be, because at the top level I kind of want to keep it really high level of basic goals and basic strategies. So that was one thing I did play with for a while, not just goals and actions, but goals and strategies. So I have this goal to eat, and the way a player or an NPC, like a person, a human, would go about solving the eat goal is going to be different than a dog would solve the eat goal, or a bird would solve the eat goal, right? A human might look through their inventory, oh, I have some bread and cheese, I'm just going to eat that, or oh, it is lunchtime, maybe I'll go to that tavern and get some food, or I'm closer to my house, I'll just pick up some lunch there, that kind of thing. So there's a more complicated strategy associated with the goal eat for a human than there is eat for a dog, who might go check his bowl. If he's a pet, he'll go check his bowl, maybe go check with his master, and then go foraging. There's just different strategies. So I'm not sure what level, if we just store the goals, or if the goals are derived from, if the goals are redundant anyway, like they're already derived from the state of the NPC, then I don't need to store those goals necessarily. So I'm not sure exactly what gets stored in the entity component system, not yet, but we'll get there. Right now, every mob sort of resets itself when the game starts again. It only knows what type of agent it is. So back to goal-oriented action planning. The interesting part of goal-oriented action planning is that you have this sort of defined actions, and the actions can be sort of the goal and the action. And at a high level, this sort of gets into what I was talking about, how if I know my goal is to, go home and eat lunch, then, or, go to work that morning or whatever, these are sort of higher level actions that then can get broken down into sub goals and actions. And those higher level actions are kind of what I want to manage the NPCs when you're only close to the town and you're not actually in the town. So there's a sort of a thing there. I find at the low level, goal-oriented action planning can get caught in loops if you're not careful, because it's not, unless you actually pretend to execute those actions and keep track of a temporary state of the world, you don't know that the action you're going to perform actually solves that goal, and so your chains have to be pretty limited. Like for example, say going back to the gun example, say you want to shoot two bad guys, and I've got the gun already. I need to get two bullets, and there's a bullet on the table, only one bullet on the table. So you've got the goal. I need to get two bullets. Well, that goal gets broken down into, well, first I've got to get one bullet, and you go and you get the action says go get the bullet off the table, and there's another action that says go get the bullet off the table. Now I've got two bullets. Well, except for you didn't actually execute those actions, so you don't know that the bullet's not there after the first action runs, that kind of thing. You're not keeping track of all the different world state changes. It gets complicated. So there's a limit to goal-oriented action planning unless you keep these sort of temporary world states, and I'm really trying to avoid that kind of memory hassle, but blah, 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 blah. We've done. So it's an interesting topic, as I said. Boy, something's really, yeah, some of my physics engine's unhappy. Anyway, so let's go ahead and, I don't know why it's taken so long, but update time was 60 milliseconds. That is a long time for one mob. So anyway, so let's get started. I think we will, yeah, just dive right in. The conversation's more interesting, but we can't ultimately do anything about it until we implement the things. So let's make a new mods directory so that we can not wreck our existing config, because I want to be able to come back to that without messing it up. Okay, so we've got the directory. I suppose I could have actually I could have done all that through the anyway, I need to copy some of the things over. To get the terrain, we're going to need to set up terrain and set up objects. So we want the terrain mod, set up terrain, set up objects, copy mods to paste. Okay. And I think that's good. Let me see. Let's point the rigor config to the new mods 2 directory. Now if I run this, I shouldn't be able to create anything. I should only have the terrain set up. But we shall see. Nope. Okay, so it's missing. Oh, the helpers. Yeah, what is in the helpers mod? System helpers. Maybe we don't want that anymore. System helpers was a bunch of stuff. Yeah, I do want that. Shape helpers was useful too. I'm basically seeing what I can scavenge from my existing mods configuration. So I'm using the actual module, it's the same mod system that Mythruna uses. It's part of the open source stuff, where you can have different code modules and they have different scripts or Java files that they can load, and have dependencies on one another and so on. And they can be overridden by other ones too. So this is a create a shape view. Yeah, alright, let's take all of these. So we want helper mod with the 2 files it has, and it has no dependencies, so we should be good to go. System helpers, shape helpers, and helper mod. Copy over to mods 2. Paste. Okay. Now let's see if we can run. Yeah, okay, so it was able to load the mods. Let's see if we can start our simulation. And it still has actions. I think actually this is built into the playground. So to be able to create a mob is built into the playground, and then what that actually does, so we can place her, okay, but she won't do anything because, yeah, we actually haven't done any of the work to set up the, So what does that? It's not train, it's not helpers. So yeah, so like nothing sets up the scriptable driver. Like we have so the physics engine allows you to attach a sort of a control driver to an object, which allows it to interact directly with the physics engine. We don't set any of that up. So, and it's kind of hacky in that if it's null, it still tries to call it. Is it setup driver? I think it is setup driver. Whoa, lots of code here though. I don't want all this. I don't want all that. Or maybe I do. Yeah, so this has got like all the path following and the arrival stuff, contact avoidance. We want to modularize that. So probably somewhere in here it's going to be calling some static methods on scriptable driver, I think. So let's look for that. Oh, or no, we actually just, oh, scriptable driver, okay, I gotcha. Yeah, so we need to set one of these up. And I set this one up as something to just delegate to a bunch of groovy closures. Anyway, Woozy, I hope that answered all your questions. So let's go ahead and we'll make a new character mod over in the new area. Yeah, okay, cool. Source main rigger mods 2. I should split these up into characters.mod.json. I should split them up into, let's just call it driver.mod.json. I should put them in separate directories, so let's call this driver. Yeah, we'll depend on the helpers, and we'll just have setup driver. And then we'll steal some of this. Setup driver.groovy, and I'll keep all the imports. This is probably something we want more generally. And so we will, where's the thing I want to keep? So let's just see if we only keep driver delegate and see where we set that here. And so for now, I'm just gonna null, and just see what happens if I null this out, see if we've got basic. This is kind of like where we want to enter anyway. Okay. I should probably have like a list of the modules loaded. So start the simulation. So far so good. Human female, create mob. Boink. Oh, she crashed just the same. Okay. Cannot invoke scriptable driver set speed because character driver delegate is null. Did I not set it? Character driver delegate. Setup driver.groovy. Maybe I'm missing something else. Log info. Setting up driver delegate. It's always good to work out the dependency bugs right away, right? So I mean, I should be able to do it even with the bird. Yeah. Of course, it dumped a lot more stuff. I need to get rid of that. That is too much logging to be doing. Yeah, let's get rid of this. And then I have to, that's in the base code. So that will help. Because that's just a lot of garbage logging. Initialize. Where's it loading the mods? That would have been earlier. Initializing helpers. Initializing terrain. Where is it initializing driver? Load modpack driver. But it never runs. Skipping driver because it is disabled. Oh. So modules can be enabled and disabled. And because I copied over, I guess, one we had disabled. Yeah, because we had overridden it with the control mod. That's what it was. So, like, we had overridden all the behavior so that we could use the cursor keys to run around. So that's why it would be good to have in this tool a list of the loaded modules, because then it would show which ones were if I added it, it would just show which ones were disabled and enabled and make it a little more obvious what's going on. Okay, so I'm going to try the real thing because the bird has that problem where it tries to walk forward all the time. Okay, so we've got a character we can do nothing with except for delete because we don't have any actions defined for her, and that's fine because for now we want actually the AI to do its thing, and we may want to add little actions to send specific signals, to change behaviors and things. So this is a good start, and because we did this as a runtime loadable module, I believe we can actually go in here, and if we wanted to, we could change how this works. So let me just verify. I think it has to be set first. Yeah, so these all need to be... Yeah, so like I kept track of a body state, and these we'll want to do similar here. But I actually kind of feel like I want to build this in a little earlier. As soon as I start to get into classes, though, there's this, like if I was to try to change this at runtime, sometimes you get into these class loader issues where it doesn't pick up the change. Even though the script reloads, some of the registered code is trying to use the old version of the class, and some is trying to use the new version of the class, because Groovy, even though it's a script language, it gets compiled to Java classes at runtime. But let us create an update method like the one we used to have. Yeah, of course I did this with body state. If I can do it with body state. Which was just a data holder, I guess, and so it didn't change very often. Yeah, okay, so I think we'll continue with this idea. And we won't put the methods there, but we will build better stuff in here for these closures, so they'll just go ahead and pass the body state in. In which case we can probably put the map in here. I'm just trying to, so when you've got just like raw open global closures, you got to provide them state. It's really easy to update the code that way, but then we always had, like at the beginning of every method, we had to like look up the state for the every closure. We had to look up the existing body state, and I'm trying to avoid that, and just pass it as the first argument to all these closures. And the reason I don't want to just have, like, because what we really want is that this to be body driver and have all its own state and data, and then we would just call it. But like I said, you know what, actually we're already going to be shutting down this script a lot, or shutting down this playground a lot, because if I'm going to be modifying Mythruna code, so let's go ahead and do this the right way. So let's call this a body driver. And and we want to have a, well, we will implement scriptable driver, but so we will want all of these methods right, but then in here we don't need any of this. Means we don't need to pass any of this. And so here we will have drivers map character driver body driver. Those names are kind of weird. So we'll have this hash map and body driver get driver character driver and just in case, I like to have an out. Otherwise I could do like the get if not present, but I like to be able to if result equals null and create, then we will make a new one. Result equals new body driver. We'll go ahead and pass the existing. What do we keep on character driver? Let's look at our update body method. Driver.body. Okay, so we have the rigid body. That would have everything we need. I'm just going to look real quick at what we have in character driver over here. Okay, so character driver already has the anim pump. Yeah, we want it because it's got the animation capabilities. Yeah, that's what's so. I kinda don't like that, but so let's pass the driver. So for here we want the character driver. Too many drivers. And then, so in here, instead of these calls, we'll call get driver true set speed. Oh yeah, let's not do, we don't need to constantly pass the character driver in anymore because we already know what it is. So we can just be more like a real control driver. New contact. See, the thing is, like, this is closer to the way the real code would be in Java. In fact, yeah, okay. I don't want to get too ahead of myself. Okay. Update. Oops. Frame time step. Okay, should compile. Did it? No. Class body driver. Oh yeah, I got it. It doesn't implement this anymore. There we go. Okay, it still doesn't like something. Update. Update. There we go. Yay. Okay, so now if we want to add behaviors to her, we can put them in here. Not in there. In the update. So let's say we just want... In fact, I'm going to pull out the body to make this code more like a real character driver. This dot body equals driver dot body. And I think we can say something like body set linear acceleration new vec3d. What happens there? Yep, so now she's sliding and she's just going to keep accelerating. Oh my gosh. Okay. Oh good, she got caught on something. So we want to take that out. And that should have let her... She's still like accelerating. Love the sliding. Yeah, because she just got like a straight acceleration. But it seems to me like she's still got that acceleration. So maybe we need to set it back to 0. Yeah, so she's not... we got rid of her gravity. She's got no gravity. I think I set gravity to 20, right? Yeah, so she had no gravity anymore. That's not really the way. So I'm going to delete her and recreate her because that is not really the way to move a mob. And so she's already been misconfigured. Oh, we already have our cool thing. So we'll just set this here. What we would want to do is, let's look up rigid body. I think I have it loaded already. Yep. So yeah, we just want to add a force. That'll add a force to the center. Yeah. So we body add force new vec3d 100. Okay, so that should give her a little push. Yeah. The thing is, like, force equals mass times acceleration, and so if her mass is 60 or whatever, I can't remember how many kilograms we make these guys, then this is an extremely small force because, you know, if you sort of, reverse the equation, the acceleration of 1, or a force of 1 divided by 60, it's teeny tiny. So I think it would need to be at least maybe 10 or more before we would actually see it. Or that's like 100 is one of the common ones I use. Yeah, she's starting to slide because she's got to overcome friction. I don't think you guys can see, but she is sliding. So we've given her a teeny tiny force. I can make it twice as much as that. Yeah, so she's got a force being applied every frame. Double it again. Yeah, now she's overcome the sticking friction. So there's like the force it takes for you to overcome the sticking friction, and then once you're moving, friction behaves differently. And so it took that much for us to get her to sort of slide around. Yes, she's going to hit that wall. So let's get her to come back the other way. maybe 300. Yeah, so now she's going slowly. But as she moves, she will pick up a little speed, right? Yeah, because she's also odd shaped, the way her collision, because her feet are like slightly off like that, they're both being dragged, and they have their own friction, and so she'll tend to turn. We're pushing her in world space, not in local space, so yeah, it's kind of funny. Yeah, so like we're not doing anything with speed either. Like that's doing nothing. It's just yeah. So anyway, we've got the driver hooked up, doing essentially nothing. Gonna have to port a bunch of stuff to get it to do anything useful. But we're on our way. Oh yeah, she hit the thing and now she's turning. Yeah, so it's basically pushing on her center of gravity this direction, but because of the way her stance is like that. So when you push on an object, it pushes against the collisions, and so it slightly turns her, and that also sends her in different directions because we're just pushing her. And when you push something, it may, like if you pushed on the edge of a ball, it's going to move to the side based on where its friction is. Yeah, so there's no way she'll ever make it up. So let's go ahead and stop the force. She's in a fine place to stop the force. Use the force, Fade. Use the force. Okay, I want to bring back the ability to center on the object. That was super cool. Where was that? Does that... So this was disabled, so we weren't using this one at all. Controller mod. Set up controller. Oh boy. Yeah, center camera. So let us make a character. Just call this camera.groovy. And we'll make a camera mod. So this will be a more reusable thing. Yeah, sure, depends on the help. Sure, why not? Camera.groovy. We will have to restart to pick up the new module. We're probably going to need to import a bunch of crap too. So let's see, set up controller. Let's just, I don't know what I need, and I don't really feel like figuring it out. So we're just going to import all the things. Let's go ahead and kill this. See if that mod loads. See, it's so much faster than running the game and entering a world. And especially since I can live load things. But I really wanted the ability to center the camera on a... Create the mob. Blink. Yeah, so now I can center the camera on her. Blink. So like if we're way over here, we can say center camera. We're back to that. And if we had more than one, we can center the camera on her, or we can center the camera on her. Super useful. Okay. So we can go ahead and delete the second one. Okay. So what next? We want, let me think, was there like a precursor game to Mythruna? No? I tried to develop lots of RPGs since I was young, but Mythruna was the first one I ever really got traction on, because the block world gave me so much flexibility, and like you get wrapped up in the engine of it all, right? And having a block world where I could just build the houses, I didn't have to model them. There was a certain amount of, I had to implement all the physics and all the other things, um, but that once I had all that bootstrapped, continuing from there and implementing RPG elements was back to the fun part. Anyway, of course, then I never finished, but so no, but I've been thinking about writing an RPG since I was 12 years old or so. So that was a lot of years ago. I'd written um, I'd written many RPGs that were like the old Ultima games. I had written some 3D maze RPGs, dungeon crawlers, but nothing like this. Where it actually like game gets big. Would you work with a publisher? Do you plan to do stuff on your own? I don't know. I plan to end up on Steam eventually, right? But I don't know what it looks like from there. I prefer to be on my own to some extent because I get some flexibility. As soon as everyone starts wanting deadlines and things, then I have to start compromising my vision, and um, there's a part of me that kind of just wants to see how far I can take the idea, what all the different impossible things I can cram in, because I've already done some impossible things, and so I'm hesitant to listen to advice on what else is impossible, and things become crystallized when you have to have something done by a certain date to meet some target. Then suddenly things that were maybe possible given enough time become impossible just because of logistics, and I don't know what that looks like yet. So I'm going to keep pressing on. I'm doing the exact opposite. So I tell people that if you've never finished a game, and I have finished games before, I've published some other things, but if you've never finished a project, game or not, if you've never finished a project to deliver to a customer, then you don't know how to do it. You've never done it. You don't know how to do it. You probably, if not you specifically, but you, the general royal you, if you've never done that before, you think you just keep working on it and eventually it will be done. And that is definitely not the way. There's a sort of wrapping up process that takes a long time, finishing all the things, wrapping up these threads that you had going, all those other things. And so in Mythruna's case right now, I'm doing kind of the opposite of that advice, where I am just kind of keeping going, developing the next thing, worrying about my loose roadmap only loosely. Sorry, I had rolled over my headphone cable. So I'm enjoying that right now because it gives me freedom, and it's motivating to know that I could just work on whatever happens to pique my fancy on any given day. Would you ever consider letting another person work on the game? That's tricky, because I can't afford to pay them. Definitely can't afford to pay them what they're worth, and if I can't afford to pay them what they're worth, then there's a risk involved that I end up wasting a lot of time. Yeah, I'm at a point in my life where I don't have like a bunch of developer friends that we all get together every weekend and we write games. That would be a different situation. Then we could all work on it together, and if somebody left, it's not a big deal. But as it is, I even have like some close work people that I would be tempted to let in, kind of thing. And even then, I just think about all the extra work it generates for me. So I don't know. I don't know. I'm never saying never, but it's more complicated than it sounds. I develop very fast, and I develop in a sort of specific way, and I like working on my game because every piece of code I touched, and it's all my style, that kind of thing. It just gets weird. I almost want to get into Java so I can understand what's going on in this game more, but it seems like a lot just to get into. Yeah, with a big project like this. Yeah, it's better to start small. But again, Mythruna's moddable if you, like literally, if you, so where we run the game here, there's a client mods directory. You can put mods right in there to run in the client side. You can put mods right in here to run server side. And it's the same sort of format that I've been playing with here, where you create a JSON file that describes what your mod is. You have to have some unique identifiers to identify it. You'd say what other mods you depend on to make sure that they get loaded before your mod, and then you have like some Groovy scripts you can run. And even though those are Groovy scripts, they could run Java code, so as long as your Java code is in the class path. So it can be an easy way to get started, just hacking some things together, making a new object in the game and seeing what it does, that kind of thing. Obviously, it's a little thrown into the deep end because there's not a whole lot of documentation. I've started working on a sort of scripting guide, but mostly for me so that I can remember how to do things. I go and check it to see what I named some special state or something. Anyway, what was I going to do? It was a good conversation. But I remember back in the original Mythruna, 10, 12 years ago, people were making mods, doing some interesting things. New objects and such, but actual behavior of them. The behavior of the objects, like even the fact that so let's take the dungeon wand for example. If we go into the game code, because the dungeon wand is just a it's just another script, another mod. So there's this prototype directory where we have this dungeon prototype.json. So it's a mod that's built into the game, but I could have put this in that mods directory. It would have still worked. And so then the dungeon wand itself is defined in here, where I've defined this. Where's the actual wand defined? Yeah, so the dungeon generator is the wand, and so like I create a type. I say what type of thing it is, the placeable. I can set up some things about it, like where I can hold it in my hand, what the shape of it is, what the model is for that, and then I can define behaviors. So when you click on a block, this is what it does. This is the code that executes. So really all the behavior of an object when you're holding it in your hand, all of the things you can do with it. You can define custom actions so that if you're in your inventory and you right click on it, it may have special actions you can run. In fact, I think you can enhance existing ones to have additional actions as well. I assume you haven't got around to making documentation for modding yet. Not full, no. Like I said, I have my that I've written. I started one for. Oh man, I've loaded way too many things to find it easily, I guess. I used to always have it open because I would refer to it. But there's a scripting guide that talks about a little bit how to create objects, or certainly what variables and things you have access to in these closures that you can define. So when when main click block is called, what can you do in here? What do you have access to? What is activator? What are some of the functions you can do? These kinds of things. Because I forget, and so I like to be able to look up, oh yeah, I have these pre-built APIs that are already in there. things you can do with an entity, and so on. So you can also run actions on it anyway. I want to get further along on that. If there's a lot of interest, that could be something maybe we could do on a live stream sometime. I bet you that like one Gemini or ChatGPT, it could come up with some. It's a little complicated. So there's all of these. The wiring is not you demand, Paul. Oh, hey, Ron. The wiring's not 100% straightforward because I've built on top of Groovy sort of domain-specific language by pre-setting up all of these global closures and things that are kind of like an API that you can use. It's not 100% straightforward to generate documentation from. Even for ChatGPT, I think it would get confused. Anyway, so maybe one of these live streams I can go more in detail on how to mod the game, and we could sort of use that to help flesh out the documentation a bit. Yeah, it wouldn't get the whole context. I would have to give it like all the files, and then I would have to somehow tell it how they get wired together in the Java code. Yeah, it's not straightforward. There's many layers involved, and to some extent, you can actually generate some level of documentation in that it will tell you what all the actions are for. Like there's a, I almost want to show you. I know we're getting sidetracked, but let me show you. So let's just go into a world. I'm trying to remember what it produces. No, that's okay. I mean, the stream was kind of just me getting back into the heavy lifting for the AI stuff, and I wasn't really sure how far we would get tonight anyway, and part of the reason that I do these live streams is to have these interactive conversations. To be honest, I make way more coding progress on my own without having to talk about it while I go. So the whole point is the conversations. So I really feel free to ask anything, and if we go off on tangents, then I think it was a productive live stream, actually. I'm not heading towards a particular release right now other than, you know, I want to do the weekend. I want to put a release out the week of Halloween, so that it'll have whatever stuff's for the Halloween party. Halloween party on the 31st, October 31st. So that's my only goal, is to put another release out before then. So anyway, within here, so even all of these commands that I can run from the console are scripted commands, mostly all scripted through mods. So there's the whole game is built on mods. In fact, you can list them. Yeah. So if I do this, these are all the mods that are loaded in the game right now. These are all built in. Some of them are my local playing around. So we had like the Halloween trophy mod, which is what I developed, which is why it's in my plugins directory. But that's specific to my server, where we had like the Halloween trophy, where if you, so I don't know who was around for Halloween last year, but I built a hedge maze, and we all went to the middle of the hedge maze. And if you made it to the middle of the hedge maze and touched the trophy, it would capture the costume you were wearing and turn that into a ghost that wanders around the hedge maze. And so everyone is sort of immortalized there who was able to show up to the Halloween party. And I'll do something like that again this year. I thought that was really cool. So whatever I build will have, like, it'll capture our images either as ghosts again or statues or something. I thought that was neat. So yeah, so there's all the mods. Let me look at help again. There's a way to do, and I don't remember if this is something I built into the game or if it's a local. This is why I dump types. Dump the current object type in. So dump types will tell you, I don't know if that's built in or if it's my local thing. So they will dump all that. It'll make a, what did it say? So let me look. So you can also actually get specific help about a thing. So dump types dumps the current object type info to an object type's txt file. So, ooh. Was it like this? No, I can't remember. Yeah, here we go. more client object types, yeah, .txt. So it dumps all these things about all the different object classes, the classes of objects that are defined. So this is the trophy. This can be useful for, yes, these are all the types I have defined in the game of objects. So this can be useful documentation to know what you can do with specific objects, or if you're building your own object and you want to know what do I get when I extend base NPC or base object, these are the behaviors you get. But it would be nice to have something like that that would sort of dump all the API closures and some information about them, and I have like ideas on how to do that. Yes, absolutely. There is a 100% Halloween party on October 31st, which is a Friday this year, so it works. So we'll do the live stream on Halloween, and hopefully some of you can make it, and hopefully we maybe have some mobs to hunt, depending on how well this AI stuff goes this next month. So we're already most of the way through September. But yeah, so if I can get like some smarter mobs, maybe we'll have a dungeon we can go through, and if we make it to the end, maybe I'll capture everyone as statues or something. But so, download the game and make your costumes. In fact, if there is interest, I could do a live stream where I just make costumes. So, I can show you sort of, you can see the clothing creator, sort of how I use it to make costumes. Yeah, man, time is flying too fast. So anyway, let's run the rigger again. Figure out where we want to go next here. So let me look back at my text file. I think that's what I was going to start doing next was, so we finished this. So I can make it green. That's one of my favorite things to do. Make it green. There we go. Set up the basic mods there for terrain and mob creation. We done. We did that too. Make it green. See if we can create a bridging system between character type and agent type and use the existing agent system. I think that will not work, even just based on what I've already seen. We would have to reuse the existing Mythruna driver as well, which we've actually created a bridge that I could use to do that. Several depths removed, but let's see. Should be the agent driver. Let me see what agent driver uses that we might be missing. Well, for one thing, if we use the agent system directly, it's going to completely replace our current character driver, which may also be okay. Just we don't have any control over anything at that point. Also, this agent system is pretty dumb. Yeah, so it's actually not doing anything complicated. It's the agent driver that's doing the complicated things. Okay, what do we got over here? Can you go over features that cities will have? Like, will cities be able to grow? I don't know that they will grow outside of your influence. I don't know. There is this open area. I do want to have towns that actually have, families and relationships, which implies that there would be children, which implies that the children would grow up, right? And even if I'd never made any other children, like even if I never implemented getting married and having kids for NPCs, the children would grow up and they probably wouldn't want to live with their parents anymore. So I would need at least houses for the children that the world started with eventually. Um, so the focus is on balancing the world, though. So a town should stay balanced so that the world doesn't devolve into chaos when the player's not around, right? There's got to be. I want to be able to have a world with, sort of infinite towns that any given time you go to that town, the snapshot makes sense. So when you're not there, it is sort of managing itself. And so there's sort of this overarching strategy that keeps the town in balance. It knows if it's taking in this much wood, if it's taking in this much stone, it can do this many repairs, and that's the average number of repairs it would have to do to keep the town stable. These are the number of people it needs to live there to be the size it is. This is the amount of food it has to grow, and then it'll work to make sure all that's will lives of people be simulated? Yes, that's the idea. So this is the thing that's probably impossible, but I'm going to do it anyway, kind of thing. But that's the idea, and that's why I need to think of things as like a giant state machine of the whole world, where towns get simulated when you're not there, but I don't worry about the details of the people. I just know who lives there and sort of their general thing, so that when you get to the town, I know where everyone should be at that given time of day, that given time of year. Yeah. Yes, exactly right. So very similar to what Dwarf Fortress is doing. Um, yeah, that's the thing, is generating the history of the world. That takes a long time, and I I'm on the fence about it. Um, like I have opinions that have not been borne out by science. So I haven't actually tried it, but similar to world simulation, right? You can spend a lot of time um, making like I could have spent 20 years simulating geology to form the terrain of Mythruna, but that wouldn't necessarily make better terrain for the game. Whereas if I barely constrain total randomness to something that looks reasonable, I think you end up with more interesting terrain because some impossible things can happen, and I didn't have to do all of that full geological makeup. Now, if I had done the full geological makeup, there would be some things I'd get for free. Like diamonds would be where diamonds should be, gold would be where gold should be, but we're talking a whole mess of computing power and a whole mess of chugging away just to make that happen. Whereas, some layered fractals make some pretty good terrain and create some totally bonkers terrain that's actually kind of cool and plausible. And so I'm hoping that similarly I can build history from the present back. Yeah. So I was getting there, right? So I'm wondering if I can simulate that from the top down, right? So from the present back. So to build the history as I need it, like I randomly decide there should be some ruin placed somewhere. At the time I build that, I decide maybe what culture that ruin was from, and then I don't worry about what the details of that ruin are until the player goes there, and then I generate that, and that adds some more tentacles sort of into the world as far as hooking it into this place and hooking it into this place and so on and so forth. And so that's what I'm curious if I can do, similar like I did for the terrain, where you sort of work from some general randomness and then constrain it and build it back. I don't know if it's possible, but that's what I would like to explore. Can I sort of fill in that information on demand? That's how I used to run my D&D campaigns, right? If the players wanted to go somewhere, I had to quickly build a backstory, and it had to fit in with sort of my world model that I had already developed in my head and in my notes. And so I wonder how much I can get away with that in the game, because I think it's more interesting, more exploratory. It's a little harder to debug maybe, but do you plan to have unique cultures? Probably not random, though that is always on my mind. Each of the different races will definitely have their unique cultures, and how they interact with one another is sort of fixed. But as far as I've considered the idea that, the towns, they have like different language models. So there's 19 different language models that generate the town names. So you'll get like geographical areas that have different styles of town names that follow different grammatical rules, or different not grammatical rules necessarily, but you know what I'm saying. And so I like that idea. No, probably not. So the whole idea is that the world is in balance in general, and beyond some maybe specific story beats where part of the world is out of balance, the world always wants to be in balance. That is how I am able to conceivably simulate a whole giant world, right? The places you haven't been yet, they had to have existed there before you got there. And if you get there and they're already out of balance, they might have already snuffed themselves out before you got there. And so there's this idea that if the town in the middle of the desert doesn't have the resources to maintain itself, if it can't get stone, if it can't get wood, if it can't get water, how is that town there? It wouldn't be there. So if it's there, there must be some way that it gets its supplies, and so then the world has to sort of balance itself to make sure that there are trade routes that get there regularly enough that the town can support itself, and so on and so forth. And so the whole world seeks balance in that sense, because otherwise I can't explain how the world works at all. And so there's a sort of overarching, not a government, but an influence that tries to keep even the kingdoms and stuff in order. Yeah, it's just tough. And so, like, from a story beat perspective, I would like to have isolated events like that, but it's difficult to, from a story beat perspective, it's really neat but I have to build a balanced world first and then see where I can insert a little bit of imbalance without, like, suddenly throwing the whole system off. Like, even if you, the player, so you go, there's maybe two towns, they do a lot of trade with one another because one has a forest and the other has a stone quarry, and so town 1 needs the stone from town 2, and town 2 needs the wood from town 1, and so on and so forth, and there's this bridge between them, and that's their primary trade route. And so you, the player, go and you whack their bridge and you just completely destroy it. Now there's a story happening, right? These towns can no longer trade with one another, and the world will need to seek to rebalance that. The trade guilds, the circle of guilds, which is sort of the underlying government of the whole Mythruna world, they let the kingdoms do their thing, but you've got to interact with the trade guilds, and so you're going to do ultimately what they say anyway. They would seek to, like, find new trade routes to make sure those towns could still get the things they need, or those towns would have to go to different towns, but there needs to be some impetus of the world to put all that back into balance. Probably not. Well, like I said earlier, I don't know how I'm going to handle the case where people are born and grow up and want to have their own house. Do they move to a different city? I think there's going to have to be some expansion over time, but I don't know how that works yet. And certainly you're going to want to be able to build your own towns, and that's something that I will 100% support, where you can petition the Circle of Guilds to get your own town charter and start your own town, and NPCs will want to work there, and so you allot them, plots of land for them to build whatever, just like you would have to petition the town to build a house there or to have a house. They would have to petition you to say, yes, I would like to live here, and I'm a blacksmith, and you should really want me living here. And oh yeah, I would like a blacksmith, and so on and so forth, that kind of thing. So there is some growth, but I don't know how automatic it will be other than through player influence. And again, all this may turn out to be slightly impossible, and then I'll have to fall back on standard RPG tropes, in which case prescribed story beats and so on. Yeah, I've talked a lot this live stream. I'm getting parched. Okay, so let's see how we can salvage a little bit of this. Thing is, we've already got something that creates our driver. I got it. So I have this. So I'm in imbalance right now because I'm thirsty, but I have to be careful of what I drink because I already have pounded. Oh, I still have the Pepsi I'm working on. I haven't even finished my Pepsi. But I actually need to go to the bathroom, so you know, like I have to balance the drinking with the need to relieve myself. So so let me think what the agent system is doing, because we've already been doing some of this in the prototype. Agent system is saying this agent type needs to go with this AI. We already have a character type which we could use to do the same thing. In which case we could find the right agent driver, give it the physics engine. We could give it our own agent chat provider. And the entity ID is already on the body. And so we would actually be just creating a delicate. Yeah. So sorry. So towns won't expand on their. Yeah. Growing villages that work around your own buildings sound insanely complex. Yes. Well, I mean, you have to see sort of what evolves from the systems you create. I'm a big fan of emergent behavior. So if I create a bunch of simple systems that interact with each other in complex ways, that's really neat. You know, the simplest example I can think of is the Gafen, which are those bird creatures. And if you run up to them, they run away from you because they get spooked. And then there's the dog. So that's a simple system. If something runs up to it or gets in their line of sight and they're moving too fast, the Gafen will run away. Whereas the dog, on the other hand, when he sees somebody new, he wants to run up and be friendly. So he runs up to whatever he sees that he hasn't seen in a while, or you know, someone he's never seen before. So when you walk into the dog's field of view, he'll run up to you because he would like to say hi. And so the emergent behavior there is that when a dog sees a Gafen, it goes and runs up to the Gafen, and then the Gafen runs away, and then the dog chases it because the dog wants to go say hi to the Gafen, and they chase themselves around the yard until they get tired of that, and the Gafen wants to rejoin its flock, and it flaps back over there, and so on and so forth. I like emergent behavior, so I'm going to lean into that heavily. All right, so let's see. Can we just steal the agent driver? Or is agent driver doing a lot of other things? Agent driver wants the physics system. It does not have access to the entity system, which is but it does do specific things with the body. Yeah, so these are sort of hacked together to get the job done. And so the agent driver is what plugs into the physics object, and so then the physics object will notify at every frame of the contacts that it has, when it's contacting some, the ground or the wall or another thing, and then it will call it every frame to update itself. And so this agent driver does a lot of things. It ticks the brain to see what it should be doing. It sets the animation. It figures out how to move based on what the current steering is and all this other stuff. Which in my opinion is it's also like figuring out what brain to load. It's doing too many things right now. And so I kind of want to just pull it in wholesale, but I also kind of want to break it up and move it over pieces at a time. And so then this is where I get stuck in a live stream, because I need the part of my brain I'm using to do the live stream. I kind of need fully engaged on how to break this up, and so I try to think what steps I can make. So is an agent driver component of another class like agent? So there's an agent system. Let's look at the entity. So there, in an entity component sense, there's a agent type, um, which so a given entity can have an agent type, which they can have like the high level, which means that they get the maximum amount of AI. They can be low level, which means that they're nearby but not in view. So I need to know where they are and I need to know what they're doing, but I don't need to manage their second to second animation because nobody is seeing them. And then there's level passive, which means they're so far away. I don't need to think about them except for day stuff. So, and so there's this agent type, and then there's this agent system, which basically, for every entity that has an agent type, it creates this agent driver that it uses. That's so the entity, you attach an agent type to it, that tells the agent system, hey, I need to make one of these agent drivers and plug that into the physics system so that it implements this agent type behavior of a dog or a human or a bird or whatever. And so then from that point on, we've configured this agent driver and we've told it, we've like told it how to communicate back to the game too, if it needs to say things, what its entity ID is, and the physics system, and we say, okay, go for it, and then we plug that into the physics system, and from that point on, as long as it has that agent type component, then this agent driver is ticked every frame by the physics system, and so we get this. So we get notified about any new contacts that we have. If something bumps us, we bump something else, and we get notified every frame to do something. And what we figure out is, okay, I need to figure out, based on my current collisions, whether I steer around them or do that thing. I need to tick my brain to see what I should be doing right now, that kind of thing. Is there a specific reason you did ECS over another system? ECS is way better for managing lots of objects. I could write probably white papers and dissertations on this. Yeah, I've even brought in the idea of entity component systems into enterprise level coding in my day job before. It is superior in so many ways that are probably hard to discuss here, but I think it's neat that an architecture that was born out of the memory constraints of consoles turns out to be pretty cool for managing a large number of objects. I would guarantee you that everything like RimWorld or Dwarf Fortress, anything that manages hundreds of thousands of entities is probably going to be an entity component system of some kind. So it's pretty neat. And so you'll get some confusing results, although I think a lot of it's better. I think I looked at what Google AI had to say about entity component systems, and it wasn't wrong. Like, it used to be half the documentation you found was for something kind of like an entity component system, but it was written by someone who didn't really understand it. And I've implemented a Java entity component system that is open source called Zaius, like Dr. Zaius from Planet of the Apes. But that's like been open source for a while now. Let's see. It's one of the core JMonkey engine things. There's even like beginner tutorials on how to use it and stuff. So this one is as pure as I could make it. It doesn't even define what a system needs to be. It really is just a entity component kind of quote-unquote database that has networking built in. You can store it in SQL, but it doesn't put any constraints on how you query or interact with that. It just has a variety of ways to either query it directly or get notified about changes, that kind of thing. So it's not built into JMonkey Engine, but it's directly linked to it. It's one of the JMonkey Engine add-on libraries. I have several. Lemur, the UI that works with this is sort of a open source JMonkey Engine add-on. There's also Sim Ethereal, which is the networking library that Mythruna uses to sync stuff. So you got this Where'd I go to the wiki? There it is. So overview, yeah. So this is how the networking. This is the networking library I wrote. That's the real-time object syncing stuff. That is why the physics can be distributed across clients and stuff. So yeah, lots of stuff I've written for the JMonkey engine community at large, and then Mythruna also uses it. So, but yep. So sometimes you'll get these tutorials that are built right into the JMonkey engine website because they're useful. Okay, so we've got like 19 minutes. What can we do with 19 minutes? This really wants to be able to control the thing directly. I think I need to organize my thoughts. So let's come back over here and let's think. What does a mob need? It's driver. What does the driver do? Driver needs to keep track contacts, keep track of body state, keep track of animation. Should the driver do low-level steering? Probably low-level steering, primitives, implies contact avoidance, which is something we worked on in previous live streams. These things tend to be all tied together. You can't properly steer without some contact avoidance, and they interact with one another, and those interact with the body state and what you're trying to do as far as animation. Probably animated actions, because that affects the steering. So that's kind of what the minimum we had working already, and then I think what else did we have? The brain. Do we have the brain? Yeah, so the brain gets ticked every update. Yeah, so we update the brain. Tick the brain. Alright, AI behaviors. And so then the brain then handles signal handling, state management, sensor queries. Just trying to think what I can pull over. And some way to set steering actions on the driver. So there's an implied interface between these two things. And I think I had already defined this interface. Did I? No, apparently not. Implement agent. Yep, I did. So yeah, no, that's not really it. Oh, extends mob. Okay, mob. Nope. So how does the brain tell the driver what to do? Like when we want to set the steering, I bet it just has the driver directly. Yeah, it's that's bad. So it's directly contacting the driver. We need to. So I need to think about. Need to think about the brain driver interface. I don't know if I'm going to be able to tackle any of this in the next 14 minutes, and I actually kind of have to go to the bathroom. So it makes I don't have to go bad enough to like leave early from the stream, but it is kind of distracting my thinking. So it's certainly taking a little bit of my brain power to think about that. So are there any other questions, things we want to go over while I'm on the stream? Any other questions that I might be able to just talk about for 13 minutes? I'm trying to think. If there's anything that I didn't discuss in the cool questions that have come up so far. Will we get masks for costumes? Oh, you know, I really wanted to have that done for this year. Maybe I should take a little time. Hoods and masks is something I really wanted to have available this year. You know what? I will. So there's a larger thing where I want to have the ability to have like scars and tattoos and things, because as soon as we start to take damage, I'm going to want to be able to paint damage on the player. And that starts to get into being able to create masks. You can collect candy for a Halloween event. Yeah, I mean, I have to think about how that would work. And not about the scripting thing, but just from a gameplay perspective. I don't think enough people have joined the server and created their own little houses, but that could be an interesting thing where we could go from house to house and check out every. Maybe if enough people join and create like cool buildings, maybe we can create sort of a set of marks to visit everyone's little place. At least, whether they have candy or not, it would give us an excuse to like go check out everyone's buildings. Any website side roadmaps for developers for development in the future? Again, I don't know. I have my master tracker, which I use, but then I sometimes like ADHD style jump from thing to thing based on sort of the trend of the day or what I'm interested in. I will tell you high level what I want to work on in the super short term. Super short term things I'm missing. AI. That's one. Yeah, masks and hoods. Masks, hoods, and hairstyles I really miss, but they're not also very important. But every now and then I get like a little idea where I want to experiment with something, and that's like a good Saturday's worth of experimenting. But one thing we really super miss is dynamic lighting, dynamic local lighting. Like the ability to have a torch in your hand and have that affect the lighting of where you are. But yeah, like there's things that are like, again, like I talk about when I was young, I used to create RPGs all the time, and I would spend so much time making character creators. I think I've probably written 5 times as many character creators as I ever got a working RPG. Because it was so much fun, there's all the potential. Oh, like how would they roll for strength, and maybe they can like put some stuff in for their background, and that could control how their attributes are defined. And man, I created so many character creators for games that never went past character creation, or I'd get like the initial little area of the world loaded in with your character, and that's as far as I got, because it got boring after that, right? So I really do want to so yeah, it's like we all like drill in. Um, so I really want to enhance character creation because it bugs me that I can't customize the face and the body type. It bugs me that I can't customize the hair. That's a big deal for me. Um, and the gap for costumes, masks, and hoods would just make it so much better. So I may, when I'm falling asleep tonight, I may think about that a little bit to see if that's something I want to mess with this weekend. Because then I also have to think about what to do on live streams. And that might be a good topic for a live stream because it also ties in with encouraging people to make costumes. But you mentioned the candy. I kind of like the idea of encouraging people to get in the game and make some cool buildings that we could visit. And so as far as like trick or treating goes, it could be a case where, you know, maybe we set it up so that people let me know where their cool houses or buildings are. We can create some worldwide markers and some little trophies or things to tag that would like almost like quest markers, right, where we could see whether they'd been to all the houses or not, you know, that kind of thing. Because I think it's cool. It would encourage all of you guys to log into the public server and create some cool things. And we might wander around early and check out the stuff. And you know, while you're there, you can create your costumes and so on. But then it would encourage everyone to make cool things because we're all going to go around and see it. Because I think a lot of times that, especially in a world as large as Mythruna, that's the problem, right? You create cool buildings, but nobody's going to wander over there and see it. Like the old Mythruna was really cool because you couldn't trip over a hill without coming across something weird that somebody had built there. That was good and bad, but I think it encouraged more cool buildings. Like we had rocket ships and airplanes and you know, the full Enterprise at one point. So, but this is my super short term. Like dungeons, I think are severely missing dynamic local object lighting. I would like to be able to create dungeons with no lights in them at all, except for maybe a few magic lights hanging around. But that you have to wander around with a torch in your hand so that you can see where you're going, or a lantern on your belt. So this is, and it's like non-trivial to implement. Or at least I have a few ideas, and I may have to overhaul some of the lighting system in the process and so on and so forth. But what's the craziest thing I've seen someone build in Mythruna? That is an excellent question, because there were plenty of crazy things. Somebody named, I think was that, I can't even remember his name now. And he's probably going to be upset with me for that. He actually spent a bunch of time making a giant dragon statue holding a person. That was a specific reference to a character, and unfortunately it was at the time where I had stopped developing the game and I wasn't even really playing anymore, and so it took me several years before I even logged in to go look at it, and he made it for me, and I feel bad about that. But that was pretty crazy. Somebody actually used they hacked their client and put the entire Starship Enterprise, you know, the original series Starship Enterprise full size, floating above the water out in the middle of nowhere. Yeah, there was a rocket ship. Man, there was just lots of crazy things there. At some point, the world of original Mythruna is so small compared with the current one that so let me load the game real quick. I do want to, like, at some point when I have time, write a script that takes the old server world and inserts it into a new Mythruna world, you know, translating the block types and stuff as possible. But I think it would really bring home the difference in scales between the two games, because as far as we ever walked, we rarely got more than maybe 2,000 meters from spawn. Or at least I created a second spawn one time that I had planned to transition to because I built a whole town there, and that was at like 1800 or something. I tried to put it far away, but the scale of the world was so much smaller that everything was right next to each other, and I think it would be neat to bring it in. But let me kind of show you on the map what I'm talking about. Because I mean, the maximum you could see in the original Mythruna was 192 meters. But so if you think about it, on this map, like the spawn is way over here. I think that, yeah, that's the spawn. It's gonna load in a second. Again, the live stream really kills us. So I'm pretty confident that all of the existing Mythruna world and the original public server, which had tons of stuff built, most of it, if like this was the spawn, most of it would have been right in this area. Like that's the maximum distance. Maybe we got as far as this. Oops. But yeah, so maybe we got like as far as 5 kilometers, maybe. But so the entire server world, which had so many houses and people and things that people had built and stuff, would all have fit within this area. So it's the sort of the scale of the world and what we're dealing with. And I want to get back to the point where that level of detail is interesting around, and I stress this in the live stream too, I really want to get to the point where everything you would want to do could be, you know, within your line of sight of, you know, this immediate sort of mid-level terrain. So there's plenty of interesting things to do there. But oh, by the way, if you wanted to go and find that faraway mountain that's on the horizon, you could walk there, right? But there's still plenty to do local. Like that there would be so many things to do in this town that you could spend days just playing around in this town, that kind of thing. So, but yeah, I do want to at some point take that old world and like insert it into one of these worlds, you know, just to create, I think it'd be like maybe I think it's like 3 by 6. I can't remember how much I calculated to be 3 by 5 or something, that the entire world would fit into some area like that, which I think is kind of mind-blowing in the end. Yeah, I've got so many quests already in this game. I walked around and got a bunch of quests, so I've got like all these little quest markers. Anyway, so I don't remember what the craziest thing was. I saw lots of crazy things. But it would be fun to port that world over, and so everyone else could see the crazy things. And we need to make new crazy things, because the thing is, new crazy things you could actually see on the horizon from, you know, 2 or 3 kilometers away. You can see that crazy thing. Will there be any other kind of worlds similar to how Minecraft? Yeah, there are going to be at least the sort of the spirit plane where you go when you get killed. And then you'll have to make a deal with the god of death to get back to the regular plane, which is something only available to players, because players come from a different world. We literally do, right? And so we are special. Players are special in the world of Mythruna, kind of like the old Ultima games, or, you know, standard RPG or fantasy genre thing where, you know, you're real world guy gets transported to some real weird world. But yeah, so time works different for us and so on and so forth. But so that's the reason why we can make a deal with the god of death and be put back. But we'll have to give something up. Maybe something we're carrying, maybe years of our life, because age will be a mechanic in the game. As you get old, you'll get feeble and be able to find maybe ways to reverse aging, that kind of thing. The neat thing is, because Mythruna has, like, when you create a world, you can create multiple characters in that world. So you could get to the point where one of your characters has gotten so old and you're kind of tired of playing them, but you still really like to play around in that world, and so you could almost like leave stuff to a new character you create, where it could come in and you wanted to try to play a different kind of character, and so you go in and your original character has left you stuff in the world that you can go pick up and find. I just kind of like these mechanics, game mechanic ideas. Maybe like, yeah, because like eventually I'd like you to be able to lose limbs and have to recover limbs and things like that. Same with NPCs, be able to chop their arm off and all these kind of gruesome things that'll probably get me in trouble with, rated M for mature kind of things. But yeah, so there will at least be that. I have some ideas for some other ones too. I used to run an RPG where I had like 7 different planes of existence and ways to traverse from one to the other, and I'd like to bring some of those ideas back in. Yes, of course. Yes. Yeah, probably. Although Mythruna magic won't really work that way. There probably will be something like that, even if it's just inspiration for how to do a particular kind of magic. Hard to say for sure, but there will definitely be religions and different gods for different things that the Mithrunians worship, and specific mechanics around that, and healing and so on and so forth. So yeah, so I guess there would be some level of magic associated with that, but it's more natural magic. Hard to describe what I'm thinking because I haven't really fully fleshed it out myself. So, but yeah, I mean, I like to sort of reimagine existing RPG tropes within the systems that I've thought of how magic energies work and stuff. So when I think of a fireball spell, I think of the mechanics and the physics of how that works with the energies and the manipulations that the player will have access to. Whether they can ever do that directly, I have a model in mind on how magic works and how spirit energy works and how, the spirit portals. I have a model in my head on how they work within the existing physics of the world. Whether that's ever manifested in something the player can control or not, I have a model in my head. Will there be weather? Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yep. Rain, blizzards, sandstorms, all that I really super want. Because, I mean, it's no fun. Like, I think of it in terms of career tracks. Like, I would like to be able to play as an airship pilot where I build my own airship and I go around searching the world, delivering cargo to make money and searching the world for better things to make my airship better, to make a bigger airship, to make more complicated mechanical linkages and things to make my airship more efficient, and so on and so forth. And of course, having to outlast storms over the ocean or something when you're flying an airship is just part of the adventure there. So, gigantic mobs, yeah, absolutely. There's a reason that the dragon is the logo for Mythruna. There's a whole mythology and stuff related to dragons that will come into play hopefully someday. And there'll be the big, can't remember what I called them, but trust me, there'll be some big mobs. It's on my roadmap. In fact, it's early on my roadmap. What is it called? Large? No, come on. There's somewhere in here. There's like a whole thing about giant mobs or something. The physics necessary to deal with large mobs. It's somewhere in my roadmap or notes or something. I don't remember what I called it in here, but yeah. The first ones will probably be the there's going to be some creatures like giant flying whales kind of thing that are up high in the sky that have their own life cycle and things. But the primary, so this is like almost a cheat spoiler in that one of the primary air bladders that are used in airships come from those that have died and fallen, because they use these air bladders as part of their buoyancy system, so we can harvest those to make airships. Will big storms be able to damage the environment? Yes. Yeah, I mean, early on in Mythruna's development, or when I was imagining how the game would work, I imagined you digging down in a mine, right? and you're digging your tunnel, and you're chopping through the brick, the rock, and so on and so forth, and you come across this thing that looks like a big glass orb, and suddenly it opens up and it's a dragon's eye, and then you beat feet to get out of there because you've just woken a dragon that's been slumbering for many, many thousands of years, and he's about to bust out of the ground in the worst way possible. And so then from that point on, dragons are supposed to be impossible to kill, like not in the sense that I will make them actually impossible to kill, but in the way that I will make them so difficult to kill that I don't even know how you would do it. Right? They will have a limit on hit points. They will be able to heal themselves. They will have a tremendous amount of power, and they will be super large. I do not know if even 20 players could kill one, kind of thing. And so I treat it more like a persistent environmental storm. Once you've woken up a dragon, there's a whole section of the world now that is probably off limits to most people, kind of thing. And there'll be a whole anyway, that's way down the line. But yeah, I have all these things in mind. So anyway, yeah, the magic system will be based on that. I have like this idea of mechanicals as well that I've toyed with, that I'll prototype at some point, where you could even make like the locks inside your chests and things. But they'll be on a small scale, not like Redstone. Like the idea that you as a player, your character has access to special abilities, which means you can plug these little wafers into your body to give you augments, and different races will have different number of slots to be able to plug these things in, to give you things like bark skin and that kind of thing, right? To give you special abilities, special eyesight. And humans will have like the most slots, and all the other races that already come with special abilities, they'll have fewer slots. Like the reptilians will have the least amount of slots because they come with some of the most abilities, as far as they will already have night vision. They will already be able to climb any surface, that kind of stuff. They already have like armored skin and so on. But anyway, so and then the idea being that these chips, which initially will be just things you buy or find that you can plug in, but the idea is these chips are things that with the right tools you could manipulate little gems to control the magic energies, if I can work out the system the way I want it. That would be the idea, that you could sort of customize how the magic energies work to make combine new things, that kind of stuff. But yeah, exactly. Magic punk, I call it. Yeah, in fact, that's what I call it, magic punk, right? It's like steampunk, because you've got like steam ships and steam powered turbines and things for your airships potentially, but the heat source might be a magic crystal that turns one kind of energy into heat, because it's configured with these chips to do. It knows that there's a certain way that you can configure these chips, and then once you supply a certain kind of magic energy to get it started, then it converts one kind of energy to another, and so you can convert maybe sunlight into heat or into electricity, and electricity anyway. Just how do you convert these energies, and then potentially have little circuits that do complicated things with that, and gravity, magnetism, heat, cold, all these different things will be energies that, at least theoretically, are manipulated to do these things. But yeah, magic punk is the term that I'm using, right? Absolutely. So I could say it's steampunk with a magic bent. So I like the idea. But anyway, I think that's all we have time for. Any other last minute questions? We kind of chatted for an hour, but that's okay. We're kind of at like the cusp of working on something new anyway. So any other questions? What do you play on guitar? What an odd question out of the blue. If you look at my YouTube channel, you can see I think I have at least one video of me playing guitar. I did like a live looping thing. And then actually I have a gig this weekend where I'm playing like 3 original songs at this tea shop. Because there's another local musicians who do all originals at this tea shop from like 2 to 4 o'clock for 2 hours, and they were having me come and sit in and do 3 songs in the middle. in my Mythruna phone picture. Oh yeah, because yeah. So that was the whole idea. There was something that I could hand out, or to have an RFID for when I go out to do open mics and people ask me about, um, information about where my SoundCloud is and stuff. That I could have that site that has all of my information in one place about all the different things I do. All right. I think it's about time to call it. If you are not already on the Discord, please join the Discord. You can get it from the downloaded game, and then we could continue chats there. But I really appreciate that the chat level was so lively. YouTube will probably appreciate it. The algorithm will appreciate it. So that's really cool. Any other quick last-minute questions as I hit the thanks thing? And start the closing music. Yeah, definitely. Thanks for participating. I think the streams are better when people talk and stuff, so that was cool. So thanks a lot, guys, and thanks to the patrons. They make it all sort of still function. And I will catch you guys next time. Thank you.